It's taken a bit of time for James and me to get to here. About a year, actually, almost a year since we met up the first time in London in September last year at the European AOS conference. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And we have a shared passion and uses the tools in the AOS framework, Traction by Gino Wickman. We'll come back to that. It's that famous book. We'll come back to that and how James is using in the business with his team. And then we're going to talk a bit about, how do we actually in these times find clarity, momentum in our industry where it's quite hard. And also we're going to talk about the fantastic news that James and the team has a new site that's opening soon. So with that said, welcome to the show, James. I'm excited to have you on and to share the story of the journey you've been on as an entrepreneur, but also what you learned.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on. Can't believe it's nearly a year since we met at the conference, and we managed to squeeze a couple of pints in afterwards as well, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Which was very nice.
Yeah, it was actually Rob Lydiard introduced us. A little shout out to him and his passion for the AOS framework as well. But for people that doesn't know you, James, and your great business up in Liverpool, talk a bit about, the journey you've been on and how you actually got launched and where you are today and what's actually really happening within very short time. I already said there's some very good news. Yeah.
Yeah. So QVO Hospitality which is my business, was formed back in 2014. So it's just over 11 years we've been operating. Prior to that, I had a career in financial services, and prior to that, when I was growing up, my mum had cafes, and she had sort of a vegetarian health food shop, if you like, sold lots of lentils, and I think probably most of my meals from the age of sort of 5 to 10 were lentil based meals. So there was lots of lentils in our house, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so I was sort of around the sort of cafe, hospitality, food industry from very young. It was very much part of my upbringing to have food everywhere in our freezers and in my mum's cafe. And then I took a divergence after uni, and I found that I thought I wanted to do something corporate, something safe, where I could wear a suit to work every day. I quite like the idea of that, and the reality of it was terrible. Realized that.
Well, you have to try. You have to try to figure it out. Yeah.
Well, exactly. I can say with 100% certainty that is not the life for me. But I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong. Working in finance and working in the corporate world, there was lots that maybe wasn't immediately obvious that could be cross transferred into hospitality, but certainly lots of things, lots of sort of things, I guess, to do with being disciplined with your cash flow. Lots of things to do with having systems in place, which again we're going to talk about a little bit today, I think. Which, when you start a new business, they're not the immediate things you think of. You think, you want to have fun, you want to, put new dishes on every day, you want to have an ever-changing menu. You don't really think about cash flow or systems, that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's a sort of brief history. We have 3 Marais restaurants right now, 2 in Liverpool and 1 in Manchester. We were part owners of Buyers Club in Liverpool, which is fresh pasta, pizza, got a beautiful courtyard. It's a place actually where I've been going as a customer since 2015 when it opened, and it's our 10th birthday this year. And we had the opportunity to become involved in the business December 2023, and that's been fantastic, really fun. To be on one side of the stick and then go on to the other side, if you like, and that's been lots of fun. And we have our pub on the Albert Dock as well, called the 1 O'Clock Gun, which again, that's somewhere that it's somewhere that serves great food, great drinks, but in a bit more of a relaxed atmosphere. So live music a few days a week. So that's a bit more of a casual setup. So yeah, we've got a bit of a mixed group now, and then like we announced just yesterday that we're going to be opening in Chester. So that's going to be
congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's nice to be able to do that. You know, times as we all know, and we don't want to harp on about too much, are probably not the most sort of, you know, economically friendly for restaurants or any business in the country. But it's nice for us to be able to expand. Although we've had to be quite creative with it, and that's maybe something we could talk about a little bit with how to do that. But we've taken a large site; it's fully fitted. It's too big to just be Marais, so we're going to split it. We're going to split it and do another concept in the back, which I can't say too much about just yet because it's not fully formed. But it's going to be something. It's going to be a wine bar kind of. It's our sort of a concept that we've got in mind, and we haven't developed it too much just yet. But that brings us up to present day.
And the journey you've been on, because exactly when you think back, it's within, you know, very short time, you build a group of mixed concept and different business models, I guess, around these, and there's a new one being added on. So that's quite, you know, incredible in that time where you think about 2016, that where Brexit happened and all the challenge there's been you've gone through over the last couple of years. What is like the mission now then? Is there something, do you have like a goal of sites? Is it something with geographical? What is the bigger mission for you as founders in the business?
Yeah, so I would say when we first opened in 2014, there was 3 of us that co-founded the business, myself, Dom, and Tom. And really, we were all sick of our jobs, and we just wanted somewhere. We just wanted to somewhere cool that our friends would want to go to, and that we would want to go to. We didn't really think about anything beyond. We didn't think about expansion. We didn't think about anything like that. We just thought we quite like a nice lifestyle job, right? It was just a lifestyle thing. It was wake up in the morning, go to the restaurant, stay in the restaurant all day, close the restaurant, go out for a few beers, go home, go to sleep, do the same thing the next day. I moved into a flat in the city centre, like 10 minutes walk from our first restaurant in Bold Street, and then I think 3 months had passed, and I realised I hadn't left the city centre for 3 months because I was just in the restaurant or having a pint after work. But that was just my life for the first 3 months. But I think you have to be like that, especially starting as we did. We didn't really have lots of hospitality experience. The 3 of us, certainly not as adults. You know, I was around it when I was younger, but I think because we knew so little, that was both our strength and our weakness, because we didn't really have any dogmatic sort of things, you know, rules to follow. But at the same time, we also didn't really know what we were doing. So but I think that was part of the charm, and that meant that we could grow the business quite organically. And one day maybe we'd have a lunch special on. The next day it would make it onto the menu. You know, the kind of thing that is a lot of fun, but also like now I have more than once. It's impossible to do on scale, or not impossible, but very difficult to do on scale. But at the time, just lots of fun, really. And that it was just Marais Bold Street for around 2 years, and I think it was after 2 years we realized we had something that people were enjoying. People were coming back, and we kept getting emails. Can you open here? Can you open here? And it just seemed like the next logical step was opening another restaurant. It was never part of the master plan. We opened that in the south of Liverpool, in a suburb called Allerton, and that's now closed. Actually, that we sold the lease a few years back, but that was our next step. And then after that, a site became available on the Albert Dock in Liverpool, and again, it just felt like the right thing to do. So we've always just kind of followed our gut. And by the time COVID came, we were quite sort of sure. That was 6 years into, I think just under 6 years into us being open was the start of COVID. And we were kind of quite sure that we wanted to open Marais in different cities. You know, Manchester was the logical next step, and Leeds, and we kind of mapped this plan out. And then, you know, I think like everybody else, COVID happened. We had a chance to sit down and sort of reassess. I guess we just decided, we had all of our eggs in one basket, and all of a sudden it became really obvious that having all of your eggs in one basket was quite a risky strategy. We didn't really have a reference point before COVID. There was the great financial crash, but we weren't in business then. So we'd had 6 years of relative, if you think about the stability from 2014 to 2020, we haven't even had 6 weeks of that, right? Since it was 6 years where basically nothing happened, in terms of like big global events, 2% inflation, borrowing costs were low. It was, everything was super stable. So I guess we got quite comfortable in that. And then after that, we kind of thought, right, we do need to change tack a little bit here and perhaps look at diversifying slightly. And that was when the pub came about, actually, and that was opportunistic. The unit next door to us at the Albert Dock was due to become a bar. There was a group from Sheffield going to open it, who we knew quite well. They pulled out, and then the landlord said, "Have you got a concept?" And I said, "Yeah, we have definitely got a concept," and we definitely didn't have a concept, but we
as you do, yeah.
yeah. I said, "Yeah, we've got one on the shelf, package ready to go. I can't quite say the name just yet." And then quickly we came up with both concept and name, but again, that was, what we wanted is something that was lower price point, lower, probably lower stress in terms of, we have a small kitchen in there, but it's one chef, and it's not a team of chefs. It's not a huge prep shift. It's a nice condensed menu. But it's a lot of fun to operate as well. It's a nice kind of venue to operate. And then we opened Murray Manchester after that, and we'd been looking at Manchester as a venue for Murray for quite some time, and we'd looked at lots and lots of sites until what we thought then, and still think now, was the perfect site. So that seemed logical because we get so many people coming over from Manchester anyway, so that seemed logical, and that's going really, really well. Like, probably better than we could have imagined, really, in terms of how busy Manchester is. And then Buyers Club is what we've known the owners for now co-owners for quite some time, and they wanted to get someone else in who had a bit of hospitality expertise to help them out, and that seemed a logical next step. So it's quite nice to be able to be quite opportunistic in a way where if something comes up, I don't know, the opportunity to become involved in Buyers Club or the opportunity to open a pub, we can be a little bit more nimble. The drawback is, of course, if you do the same thing and you repeat it again and again, you can become very, very, very good at that one thing, which is very appealing, or was very appealing in a lot of ways. And there's lots of businesses that I admire that do that very well. My first job actually was one of your former employers, McDonald's.
Yeah,
my first ever job.
That was the good training to hospitality, I would say. Yeah,
it was. I managed to get up to 2 stars before we parted ways. But there's lots and lots to learn from businesses like that, right? It's obviously that is systemized to the nth degree, where human input is very minimal. You just follow the system. Whereas I think having systems in a more hospitality environment, systems can only get you so far, and you need culture to take you over, to take you to the next step. But yeah, so that sort of that leaves us now in a position where there's myself and Tom, our other business partner, has since left, and he now runs a coaching practice. That was a lifestyle decision of his. So it sort of leaves me and Tom to sit down, and then we'll go and see Chester, and we'll say, "Well, it's quite a big site. What should we do? Okay, we've got this other concept. Let's put it in." So we're a bigger business than we were, and we have over 100 staff now, but we're still small and nimble enough, I think, to make those decisions and take opportunities when they come.
So it's more about, actually, there's not like a crazy plan of getting to 20 sites or anything. It's actually about making sure you keep the essence about what the business is about and the culture, and actually also the right opportunity in a way.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, your question about mission at the beginning. Yeah, so the sort of our mission statement, if you want to call it that, is to create unforgettable experiences, and that's something that weaves all of the the sites that we've got together, all the concepts that we've got together, they all have to be, whether you're pulling a pint or whether you're a chef or whatever you're doing within the company, that needs to be central to, that needs to be the thing that's driving you. And that the people who do really well in our business are people who have that sort of intrinsic in their nature of creating unforgettable experiences. And let's face it, hospitality is from owners all the way down to front of house and back of house. Everybody really has got that people pleasing sort of instinct in them. Or certainly the people that are super good at hospitality anyway, I feel like they've all got that built into them. And I guess the thing that we just look for is that, do you want to go that extra mile? Like, are you the kind of person that will go that extra mile? Are you the kind of person that would maybe read Will Gadara's book? What's it called?
Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah, I was going to say Unforgettable just because that Unreasonable Hospitality. Are you the kind of person that reads that book and thinks, how can I apply that to my job? Maybe you can't be a dream weaver. Maybe that's not a full-time job, but how can I apply some of these principles to my job? And they're the kind of people that we really enjoy working with and employing. So that's our mission. And then in terms of a grand plan, which was once to grow as many Marais as we could, and then potentially sell that and do some other things. Now I guess we do have a 10-year plan. We'd like to get to sort of 20 sites. That's part of our that is part of our 10-year plan. We do follow the EOS model, so it's that is the plan. We're probably a little bit calmer about maybe how quickly we get there or how we get there. Just because of the reasons we mentioned earlier. Right now, we're trading pretty well. We've had a really good year. The next 6 months, you don't know when the next electricity, the next energy crisis is coming. You don't know when the next, a general crisis in the globe is coming. So I think we've got a plan, though we're probably not as tied to it as we were. Like we were maybe feeling like we should be further along, or have that conversation with operators, sort of peers quite a lot who are similar size to us. 4, 5, 6 sites who are saying, I feel like we should be further along. We've been going 10 years. So, but we're still here. We're still trading. Yeah. Which in itself is an achievement, although it doesn't often feel that way, right?
No. And you're often impatient with yourself as well, and forget. I think I said to somebody the other day, just remember what's happened since 2020 in itself. Yeah. As you just said, there was this calm period of where people thought there was difficult moments there as well, but not like when you look back now, that was easy. Yeah, easy. Even the financial crisis was easy to operate in, I think, at that time now. Yeah, and I think sometimes we need to look at that, and as you say, we're still here. Yeah, we're still in control of a lot of things, which we control ourselves. A lot of things we're not in control of. I was quite interested. You said, "What is the next thing coming?" So the way you work in a way and think is about how do we prepare ourselves for the next surprise that will come. And it might mean that we are not going to hit our targets 100%, but we're still moving ahead. Is that correctly understood?
Yeah. So we've got a North Star, we've got a guide, but it's more like, are we, as a sort of, we call our head office a support office. I look at the support office and it's quite, there isn't much fat to trim because every business has done that already, right? We've done it. It's very nimble and agile, and I want to keep it that way. I want to make sure that we are, without burning everybody, including myself, out. That's the sort of the line traverse. Really, how can we sort of maximize our efficiency without everybody around me burning out? But yeah, it's been in that position where everybody is sort of ready, where an opportunity comes, like Chester, and we announce it to the support office, the team, everyone's super excited. There's people waiting to be promoted, and there's people who in our existing teams who have been in touch already, and can I move to Chester? I'd like to, I'm interested in such and such position. So I always want to be in that position where it doesn't feel like we're dragging anybody, where it feels like it's a natural next step. And if you've got all the staff behind you and you've got the team, the sort of senior leadership team around you, then ready for the next opportunity. I think that means I've done my job well, I think.
And coming back to, you said in the beginning, there's some learnings around, opportunities and being nimble, and especially in this environment. What have you learned from this opportunity, and how did you make it happen? Because I guess there's sometimes people think about how the hell do you grow in these times where you're just stuck?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I'm always very well aware of momentum, and I'm very well aware of the fact that we call ourselves internally, we talk internally that we are a growing company. That doesn't mean that you have to always have a site in legals or you need to be opening a site, but I think it's more to do with mindset. So yeah, it's more to do with someone's at sous chef and then someone's at head chef. They both want to move up. Everyone needs to feel it. Like at some point there's going to be an opportunity. So I guess that you can only kind of keep that environment and that atmosphere going on so long without actually doing some growth. And we opened Manchester 3 years ago this summer. So that was our last opening. And then we bought into Buyers Club 18 months ago. So there's 18 months between Manchester and Buyers Club, 18 months from Buyers Club to now. So it felt like, okay, we need to be keeping on moving. So in the background, I've been working with my property agent, and I just decided Chester was ticked a lot of boxes for us in terms of you can get there easily from Liverpool, right? Big thing. I don't want my team to be stretched too much in terms of spending lots of time on the road. It's also a city that I've worked in and really like. I think that's important. It's a nice place to go. Which gets you part of the way there. But I also think there's an opportunity, and that's the most important thing. It's all very well it being on the doorstep and me liking going there, but there needs to be a business case. And I think there's a strong business case for Chester. It's got a good scene in terms of food, but it's a bit fragmented. And I think when I look at Chef's Table, could be Sticky Walnut, they're all great. Porter's great. Salthouse Tapas has gone there from Liverpool recently. Chester Market's good, but it's a little bit. I feel like it's a little bit fragmented. I feel like there's an opportunity in that in the sort of space that we occupy, which is sort of casual or premium casual sort of that space. I feel like there's a big opportunity. So that always has to be the driver, and the rest of the things make it nice, but that has to be the driver. Looked at a lot of sites with my property agent in Chester, probably going back 3 years now, probably prior to Buyers Club even. But it's the kind of place that's hard to find exactly what. I knew that we wanted to be on Northgate Street, which is where we are going to be. I knew I wanted to be near the market. I knew I wanted to be near the cinema. So once you start adding all of these, the property agents, okay, well, it's either there or there. You really narrow down the stock in a city as small as Chester, I guess. So yeah, and then he sent me this huge unit and said, "What on this?" And I went to see it, and I decided it had to work. So we got quite creative in terms of the rent they wanted was quite high, and also Tom and I looked at it and we could picture it exactly like Marais here. So we said, "Can we split the unit?" And maybe we could do that. And then they sort of said, "Well, we could, but you're going to be paying like 89% of the rent." And then if you not got another concept you could put in there. So I went back and decided we did. And we thought, do we want to pay slightly less rent and have half of the space, or do we want to pay what they're asking and have the whole thing? So we had to get a little bit creative with it, and it did take, I really had to split it up in my head. And when we've been working with the architect on designing it, we really had to just break it up and say, this is one section, this is another. They are related, but so we haven't done that before. That's a new thing for us. In an ideal world, we like 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, and we like to have space out the front. We don't generally say to the go and find us 7,000 square feet with a huge terrace, but I think especially especially during this time as well, where maybe landlords and the landlord here is Chester Council, where they're quite willing to work with you, which is nice because there's maybe not that many interesting or exciting brands looking to expand. It means that you can have bit of a better conversation than you can when there's 10 viewings lined up after you, sort of thing.
And what has been the biggest learning, James, in that process of thinking a bit out of the box, and how would you go forward? Some learnings you would take with you, because I guess these opportunities are somewhere else as well for operators.
Yeah, definitely. So I think before we operated Buyers Club, I knew we were good at operating Marais as a restaurant, but I didn't know whether we were good at operating restaurants full stop. Similar to before we opened in Manchester, like I knew we were good at operating Marais in Liverpool, but I didn't know whether we were good at operating Marais anywhere, right? And I think the point I'm trying to make there is what we decided with Buyers Club and what we decided with opening Marais in Manchester was that let's do it, and then let's work out how to be good at it. So it's backing yourself and saying, are we the kind of business now? Are we the kind of leaders and people who can learn how to do that? And if you sort of do a bit of soul searching, you go, well, yeah, I think I back myself to be able to learn how to do that. That's probably the key to it. That's probably having that bit of confidence to back yourself, because in business, no one ever wins by copying somebody else, right? That's just not how to win in business at all. So, and no one ever wins by playing it safe either. You can do okay, but you don't win, right? You just don't win. So do you have that confidence that you can learn how to do it? And there's obviously a ceiling to that. Like if somebody said, have 10,000 square feet in central London, I'd say it's a lovely opportunity, but I don't back myself at this point to, so I guess what I'm trying to say there is, how far do you stretch it? Like from a city like Liverpool to a city like Manchester, because as much as Liverpool and Manchester are, there's a rivalry and there's different, but they're basically the same people, right? I mean, Manchester is like demographic wise, there's more money there. There's a little bit, the city centre is a bit, but basically it's the same. It's the same. So if people like it in Liverpool, they're probably going to like it in Manchester. Probably the same as Leeds and Chester and lots of northern cities. I'm quite confident that the demographic sort of fits. So you think, well, we're stretching ourselves a little bit, but is it beyond us? And we didn't think it was, and it wasn't. And then with Buyers Club, completely different type of operation. The pasta and the pizza dough's made fresh every day, and it's a lot more prep heavy. You make a lot more gross margin on it, but the wages are higher, so it's a completely different model. But we learned that pretty quickly, and we've improved that business a lot. It's a lot more profitable. It's a lot more. The service is a lot better. It's a lot busier. So that probably gave us confidence that self-limiting beliefs are the things that hold you back, right? And if you can just chip away at a few of those, then you can go from thinking, well, we're quite good at operating a 1,200 square feet restaurant in Bold Street to we're going to take 7,000 square feet in Chester and work it out. So that's 11 years difference, but that shows, I think you've got to back yourself, but not be reckless.
Yeah, I think it's again back to the growth mindset, isn't it? So how do we actually improve those 1% every day to become good at that? And I met you at the AOS conference, and we both have a shared passion for this framework, traction book. You can see we used it today. I was talking about the accountability chart. We can come back to that. But is that really that has made you? Do you think that's played a role in you become? You can operate other restaurants than just Marais. You can actually operate different business model. Is it that framework that helps, or is there something else?
It definitely helps. Yeah, I think our sort of our journey to using traction was or an operating system probably started in 2017 when I reached out to Alex Moore, who was the co-founder of Rose's Thai.
Yeah.
saw a video of him talking about how he systemizes. I think it was on Big Hospitality, as it was called then. He was talking about how he systemizes business. He gives a lot of autonomy to GM. So I thought I quite like what he's saying, and we developed. I reached out when I met up with him, and we developed a really good. He became a mentor of mine, and he sent me this book called E-Myth. The sort of original one, and I suppose E-Myth. Applying E-Myth as an operating system is probably not something that we did very well or even tried, but it was more the idea of creating a model that you could franchise, right? So it was just like, how do you just work out what it is that you're good at and do it consistently? So, how can you set up systems so that you can do it consistently? I did find it a little bit it was probably too American, for want of a better word. There were too many acronyms. It was a little bit confusing. So, but that was my sort of entry. That was my gateway. So if you like, into sort of an operating system world. After that, it was scaling up.
Yeah,
so
scaling up.
Use a scaling up model, and again, that was something that we did. There was a lot more. The language was a lot more sort of congruent with the language we were using already in the business. It didn't feel as alien as E-Myth, but perhaps it just wasn't quite hitting the spot. And then it was through our mutual friend Rob Lydiard, the founder of Yapster, who told me in his very enthusiastic way that he has, this book has changed everything. You've got to read this book. It's an operating system. And I was like, I've already got an operating system. He's like, this one's better. Okay, so I bought it. It sat on the shelf for a little while, and then I read it, and I was like, okay. So this one is actually the one that I feel is most applicable. So yeah, original question was like, how much of it can we put down to it? I think in terms of like really nailing down what your values are as a business is super important, because when you have one site, and maybe even two sites, you can hire or fire based on the founder's sort of knowledge and sort of gut instinct, if you like. That can get you so far. I think anything beyond one or two sites, the founder can't do that anymore, and it will become a complete mess. And by articulating those things and having the values written down and having examples of how to live them out, it gives the managers, okay, well, that's what they mean by this. And it gives the managers a little bit more freedom to make decisions, but they've got the guardrails either side. They think, okay, well, these are the values. I'm going to hire fire by them. I know what they mean. It gives them a bit more freedom to act. I think when it comes to the purpose or the mission of creating unforgettable experiences, I think with that's something that really became like the end of night report from every site has a story from the day. How have you or one of the team lived out our purpose today? And every day there's brilliant stories every single day from all 5 sites. First thing in the morning, that's the first thing I read, and that's just become part of how everybody thinks. So I think that has been probably the most powerful part of it has been that. The only reason I hesitate is because the accountability chart probably isn't as sexy as a purpose.
As the stories,
as the stories. However, without it, you can't really execute anything else, right? If everybody doesn't know A, what they are accountable for, but B, what everybody else should be accountable for, then it becomes very difficult to run any business, and especially when you're growing, all you're going to have is issue after issue of fire after fire to put out. The other aspects of we're only just actually working through the process element now. Something that I have probably taken me a while to get to it, because I thought, well, again, it's not the sexiest thing in the world, is it? How do we find the top 20% of processes in each function, write them down? It's probably something that you don't have to do either. Like these things, in our support office, we've got Mark's been with us 11 years, Lorna 9 years, Rob 9 years, my brother who does our books 7 years. I think we have a market manager who joined us last year, but apart from that, everyone's been here so long, it's second nature to them, right? So is it something that's essential to our success, writing the processes down? Probably not. But the process of doing it has been super enlightening, because all of a sudden something came up and somebody said, I think that's my function. No, I think it's my function. I was like, oh, right. There's lots of this going on where people, because everyone is so familiar with each other, having worked with each other for so long, maybe people are just working things out between them. But what happens when we grow? What happens when you move to a different role? What happens when we add a new role? So I would say that's been super enlightening, is actually getting the processes from each function written down. And we're partway through that project at the minute, but we're still in the but in the sort of, okay, here's all of our processes on a board, who's doing what. We probably still haven't got to the end of that bit of the process. It's taken a while.
Yeah, because there is a couple of areas if you want to run the full AOS, which covers, from vision, which you talked a bit about before, data, process, traction, issues, people, and it actually takes time. That's what you're saying as well, to embed this kind of things. And you don't have to take all of it. You can take the things that works for you. And actually, you probably came to the accountability job. So actually, I think in most business I come into the growth, both I worked in, and beside McDonald's, that was not the case at all. But that's actually what makes McDonald's very, very powerful. Everybody knows what they're doing in each part of the process. It's an accountability job, like who is responsible for what, and who is having decision power, and who do I go to, and actually who is, the one that stands with the responsibility when something in that area is not working out, and how can I ask for help to that area for somebody else, and how does we support that as a wider group?
I think so, and also how when you grow, do you make sure that you can train somebody else to do that role, and how can you then grow into another role? That's probably what we realized, that everyone's really good at what they do, but how, if any of us were hit by a bus, could anybody else pick up our job and do it tomorrow? Probably not. Touching on data, you mentioned data, so having the scorecards or dashboards, as we call them, because I think with any of these systems, whether it be Traction or eMyth or Scale, I think that there's a pure way of applying them, which is to take it literally. My opinion is that a book that's 250 or 300 pages long can't possibly cover every single business in the world. Every single hospitality business that I know is completely different to one another. Right? So never mind when it comes to manufacturing. So we've tended to, as you mentioned, like pick and choose the best bits, so the bits that suit us the most. And some of the wording, perhaps scorecard we didn't like, but dashboard we did. So that's one thing I would encourage anybody who is on that, is on the sort of EOS journey or thinking about using it, is that you don't really have to be dogmatic and literal with everything if it isn't working. Just that word scorecard just wasn't working for us, so we changed it. Big rocks don't work for us, so we call them project. But it's the same thing. It's the same outcome, right? But when it comes to data and dashboards, as we call them, that is something that is we could not live without them, right? So this Monday just gone, I was off, for example, but in the afternoon I can just go in, I can check out dashboards, green, yellow, red. You can sort of see what kind of week we've had. You can see the pre-book covers. You can see, it's not just lagging indicators, it's leading indicators. You look at that dashboard and you go, have we had a good week last week? Are we going to have a good week this week? And how's it looking for 2 weeks' time? So you get a really good, sort of very quick visual indicator. And they've run right down into the business. So the GMs have their own dashboards, the head bartenders, the head chefs. Everybody has a dashboard that tells them, give or take, have I had a good week?
And I think it's really, really interesting that, also you talked about a bit earlier, and I just wanted to grab that to the accountability chart as well. You said about building culture. Actually, when you start having these conversations about accountability and roles, that actually builds culture as well. Like, when you work through that process, because it's a hard process, and it sounds like it looks easy when you look in the book. Oh, you need to put in who is sitting in each, which kind of function, what kind of roles to that. That's actually a really hard process, because all of it has to feed to the dashboard or the scorecard. Yeah, all of these action, the most top important things in that job, have to generate something up in the dashboard. If that's customer experience, sales, or profit. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing worth saying is that not everybody in a senior leadership team would maybe make it through the process, and we found that. I think a lot of businesses find exactly that. And it's not necessarily because somebody isn't doing a good enough job or working hard enough. Maybe it is a different culture where you are like hyper accountable, and some people thrive on having like an open book environment with hyper accountability. Some people thrive on it and some people don't. And we found that it wasn't for everybody. And that is something that's definitely worth saying, because there's nowhere to hide really, right? If you apply it, you have, we have that with our P&Ls are open book with to a certain extent down the company. Our dashboards are, everyone can see everyone's dashboard. So there isn't really anywhere to hide. And if there's an issue, it will rear itself super quick, and we will jump on it super quick as well, because there is the margin for error now is it's basically gone, hasn't it? You basically have zero margin for error.
Yeah, you have to react and position yourself very quickly. You also talked about these stories you collect every day. And I thought it was really interesting, because as I understood, it was like when people live out the values or good stories from a restaurant. And I guess that's really critical when it comes to culture building, because that's something you do every day. And I guess you're not the only one reading these stories every day. They're, again, open booked, aren't they? They're shared across the group.
Yeah. They're shared across the group. So yeah, there's an email account on the host laptop. Everyone can access that. I pick my favorite few for each site each week and post them onto Yapster, our internal messaging platform. When we have our company summit once a year, we'll talk about them during that. When we have our planning days, because we have quarterly planning days for the senior leadership team, and then we also have quarterly planning days at site level. So we'll talk about them then. We talk about them all the time, daily, weekly, monthly, annually, because I think, like you say, it just reinforces the culture, and it also, the people that are really bought into it, I think it brings them even closer, and the people that maybe aren't as bought into it, it probably weeds them out a lot quicker.
Yeah, and there's nothing more powerful than stories, yeah? Like they are, and that it exemplifies the values and so on. So I really, really love that. What has been your favorite story this week? Can you remember off the top of your head?
Can I remember off the top of my head? Yeah, so we sent an email out to our newsletter announcing that we're going to be opening in Manchester, and we had a lovely email back off a lady who said, "Dear James and Tom, thanks so much for your message. Sadly, I can no longer come to your restaurant as I'm now in a care home, but I have lovely memories of coming to your restaurant, and I wish you all the best for the future." And you sort of, you get messages like that, and then that's something I'll screenshot and then share with everybody, because that also reminds me of how long we've been never been in business for. The people were regulars, and they're now they're now not in a position to be able to come anymore. But I thought that was a really lovely story, because that's somebody who's taken the time to reply, taken the time to wish us well. And we're going to try to get some food over to her, because if she can't come to us, then we're going to try and go to her, because I think that's it was just super nice to receive that message off her.
Yeah, and she missed something. So if you can do that for her, you will bring a light in her life. I love that. What has your tough learnings been in the last couple of years? Like some really top level, it could be one big top level learning that really set you like, okay, this really have changed my mindset around hospitality or the business I run.
Yeah, I think distill it down. You know, I think being obsessive about detail is something that's sort of always driven me, and sometimes it drives me and probably everyone around me mad. But I think that's something that you will in any hospitality business. There's so many details to get right that you need several people who are pretty obsessed about details. And I think that as people are still getting price shock all the time. I get price shock when I go to London and buy a pint of Guinness and it costs me £8. I'm still like, I still expect it to be £5, even though I know full well how much a barrel of Guinness costs, and I know how much you have to sell Guinness for to make, a decent GP. I know all that, like on a literal level, but on an emotional level, I still spend £8. Or go for a meal that cost £100, and maybe 2 or 3 years ago it would have cost £70. It's somewhere that's okay, but not amazing. I still get that price shock. So I think the last couple of years has made me super aware of that as a consumer, I'm getting price shock. So if the guests who are coming into my restaurants and I'm probably getting price shock, we need to make sure that all the details are spot on, because if you give them one reason to feel like they didn't get great value for money, you're already struggling, especially in a pub, to give people value for money, because there's not as much hospitality goes into the experience. So you're already struggling to give them value for money, but we can't drop the ball on any aspect, right? Whether it be the toilets, whether it be the ambience, the atmosphere, whether it be the appearance of staff, whether it be the appearance of the outside, and so on and so forth. So I think because people are still getting price shock, the number one thing is like, okay, they're still getting price shock. We need to over deliver like never before.
And do you think that is like the prices and the adaptation of that and have to deliver on that level? Is that do you see that as a challenge, or do you see that as a good thing that you have that pressure?
So it's both. Yeah, it's both. Like the first 6 years that we were open, we didn't really have those challenges, and you can get a little bit comfortable. You can probably put a little bit of weight on, and you can, metaphorically, but you can probably feel a little bit comfortable. When you meet adversity, that's when you sort of work out what you're made of, right? And whether you're cut out for it. So I think it's both. I think it definitely. Hopefully there will be easier times than this. I don't think we can guarantee anything anymore, but I also don't assume there will be. But if there was, then I feel like we would have been through like the toughest times for business, and it'll put us in a position where we could really kick on. And if it doesn't, well, we can operate in this environment. And if it gets worse, which it could well do, well, we've already adapted to it getting worse. So if anything, it builds your resilience. It's not good for the lines on your face. Probably not good for your blood pressure, but it's definitely good for you as a business owner, I think. To be able to just to know that can I push myself that extra mile? Can I, maybe in the first 6 years, could I run a 10K? Probably, but in the last 6 years, can I run an ultra marathon? Well, I've done it now, so what's another 10 miles, I guess.
Yeah, well done. And how do you balance that? Because again, you have said you said earlier, didn't you? I need to balance that without burning out the team when you run. It's tight, yeah, and you need to be aware all the time that the dashboard doesn't go out of whack.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got the answer to that, other than to just be super aware of the people around me. So I check in often, and our standards are super high, our expectations are super high. But if say someone's got some personal stuff going on, or there's a reason why maybe the performance is dropping, they'll get 100% support, right? So it's not just it's not a cult that you dedicate your life to. It's like, you know, you work hard given the resources you've got available to you. So I guess it's me just keeping an eye on other people. And then who keeps an eye on me? That's probably at home. My partner will tell me when I'm not on top form, and just remind me that we need to take a holiday, or you need to take some time off, or that's the harder one to regulate. Is I think I'm pretty good at keeping an eye on people around me and making sure they take the holidays, making sure they don't work too hard. There's probably most founders are the same, right? I don't know. I trying not to drink too much, try and go for runs. I have a meditation practice, I'm journaling, all those good things, but I don't know if that stops you from getting burned out. I guess it helps with moderation, it helps with the recovery, but making sure that I don't get burned out myself is a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's an element you're always on the borderline of that when you have ambitions and you want to do well. And you said all details is important, and that's tough because again, it's also who you are. So often I say, but also a really big part of who you are. So you can't just take that out of the equation. You need to manage that in a way. And I think all of those things you said helps. They definitely put some buffers in so it doesn't go to the extreme. So when you end in any extreme, it's never good, but you're probably always over the middle, yeah? Because always running slightly hot in terms of for the car, What is the one question you wished I asked you, James, and what would it be, and what would you answer?
Yeah, I guess how I'm thinking of that is how, say I'm listening to one of your podcasts with somebody else, what do I find interesting about other people would be like, how do you keep your drive? I think it's a really interesting area. How do you, it interests me a lot, like what drives people, right? What drives people to want to be successful? How much of that is us just trying to prove ourselves to other people, and how much of that is, because if you look at some of the most successful people in the world and you look at them and you go, you're successful, but are you happy? Are you content? you might be president of the United States, but you don't seem to be very happy, No. So I think that's something that we all need to probably keep an eye on as well, and probably understand about ourselves, is like what's pushing you. And I have some ideas with myself, what pushes me, but I also know some of the insecurities that push as well. And then it can mean that if things maybe aren't going as I would like them to, it can probably hit me a little bit too hard, like harder than it should, in terms of business, because you put a lot of your self-worth into it, maybe too much. Maybe too much. But yeah, I guess how do I keep my drive and keep my drive? Because I still think I've got something to prove, I guess would be my answer. Whether that's to myself or other people, I'm not sure, but I still feel like I've got something to prove. And while I've still got something to prove, I think I'll still be in business doing what I do. When that, if and when that ever went, I wouldn't be sure why I would still be doing what I did, but yeah.
And it's very interesting, and especially in hospitality and the challenge you're under. Actually, I think it's a really interesting question. I think actually I want to add that to the future as well, because what actually drives you to do this? Go against the grind, doing almost the impossible business model sometimes, and making it work. And of course, there's other businesses that's tough to be in as well. It's not like hospitality is the only business in the world that's tough, but there is some, dynamics in the outer world as outer hospitality operators control right now. I believe that where actually you just have to accept you have what you have, and you have to control what you control, and what you cannot control, you just have to let be. Yeah. And I think that actually is hard to keep the drive in that. And that I can see that's actually why some people are leaving the game, because they can't find that drive, because you need that drive to survive those periods. Yeah. So
you've got it. Yeah, you've got it. Or maybe when the reward, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or whatever they had in mind, disappears too far out of view. At that point, you sit down, you think, well, it's another stressful day. Is this all worth it? You know, why am I doing this? And ultimately, it isn't for everyone. I do think that entrepreneurs are built slightly differently to sort of general population. Just from my observations, there is something in them that they're willing to push themselves that quite a little bit further than maybe people who are employed or who don't run businesses. That's my observation anyway.
Oh, it has to be uncomfortable. That's not fun. So
That's
you're not growing.
Yeah.
Coming back to where we started, we're not growing then. Just shortly, one of the last questions here, James. What is your favorite hospitality experience you ever had?
I think back to actually shortly after we opened Marais, when I went over to Copenhagen and at Relais, it was just hospitality on a completely different level to what I'd experienced before. It was the little touches. It was the cutlery in the drawer. It was the fact that the chefs were bringing the food over. It was the knowledge of the staff. It was how cool everyone was. Because it was fine dining, but the front of house had vans on. I was just like, right, this is really, really, you know, and it wasn't that long, I guess, after the sort of new wave, and Copenhagen was really on the up at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my favorite because I'd been to like nice restaurants before that, and had a couple of sort of Michelin experiences, but they'd all been quite identical. They'd all been quite similar.
Yeah.
And I went there and I was like, right, this is, you can do it much differently. And of course, that's the way a lot of, that's the way a lot of fine dining is now, right? It's gone that way, which is great. It's like, yeah, the food's going to be immaculate and the knowledge of the front of house is going to be great, but don't necessarily expect a white tablecloth or pomp and ceremony. But it was quite new to me then, so I guess because it was so new, but yeah, I'd say that would be the standout that springs to mind.
Yeah, the Nordic food movement, with the Danes are very proud of, and it's now an export kind of.
It's an export. It is. It's probably I was to Carlsberg as
Carlsberg butter and bacon, yeah,
and bacon, yeah.
And windmills, not forget, and medicine, yeah. Where can people find out more about you, the team, connect with you if they have questions, if they want to maybe check in with you and learn more about how you use EOS in the business?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say if you want to know anything about Marais in particular, marais.co.uk, you can find me. I'm not super active on LinkedIn, but I am on there, James Bates. More active on Instagram probably, and my handle is J Marais, which is JayMaray, and I have just started a Substack actually to do some pre-opening diary, something I've been intending to do since watching David Chang do the pre-opening diaries years ago. You know, the famous ones, and they're so good. And mine aren't going to be. There's probably going to be more text than video, and I'm not as cool as David Chang, but that's something I've been intending to do for a while. I read a really good one actually. Gina Restaurants in London they've just opened, and they did a series of pre-opening diaries, and then they were really good actually. So that inspired me to finally actually do it. I think every time I must do it, and then there's a million jobs to do. But that's a Substack of mine. So that again is under the name of J Marais. So yeah, a few different ways. Or if you want to pop in and see me, I'm on the Albert Dock. My office is above the pub, the 1 o'clock gun. So I'm here a few days a week. I'm in Manchester a couple of days a week, and maybe at Buyers Club 1 or 2 days a week as well.
Great, James. And you know what? I'm looking forward to following your diaries, the opening diaries. That's going to be very cool. And thank you so much for taking the time out to share the story, your learnings, and sending you and the team power and energy for the exciting, probably 6-12 months ahead, with new openings and keeping the momentum.
Yeah, much appreciated. Great to chat, and thanks for having me on, Michael.